to personally go onto my computer and get them loaded up. I couldn't do it through my phone. They were just so large. They wouldn't allow you to do more than 15 minutes. So right now, as you can see, I might need the lamp on.
Good morning once again, Ken Wells. Apparently, some people didn't hear it. We need the juniors with the last name Adi to be attending to report to the large group instruction room, please. Make sure you do not bring your bags, jackets, or anything that looks like cell phones. Thank you.
There we go. As you can see, I actually have the B up here, and outside of class, I worked on a contour drawing, and I noticed that some of you are actually at that point where you have the outline of the animal done, and I have the outline done. But then I went through and I did the actual small details in the body of the bee and the wings. And some of you, I noticed that we're actually shading the
Sorry,
hair
idiot. It's Adi.
on your animal.
Have a great day.
Don't shade your hairs. You don't want to shade your hairs. What you want to do is, this is going to be called implied line. As you can see right here, I have a lighter line along here, and then it starts getting darker and more defined as it goes around the body. What happens is with shade gets darker as it moves around and behind the object. When you look at something, when you look at an object, the line is never consistent. So when you're at home, look at like a coffee cup that's on the table and see where the light is hitting it. As the light is moving around the coffee cup, for, let's say, for this for instance, right here, that little dot on top of my class, you can barely see the line. It's very faint, it's very light, and as it moves around the class, it gets darker. And the line right here where the reflected light is, I have some reflected light right here. The line between the reflected light and the core shadow is harder to see because it's feathered. So when your object gets feathered, like this wing right here, you can barely see the line there. When it gets feathered, you're going to want to have a very faint line. This is going to tell you as you're shading that you're not going to have as many dots there, that the dots are going to get fainter. Remember in the notes and in the presentation I talked about how cast shadow and shadow, as it gets further from an object, it gets lighter and feathered. It's the same thing with line when it moves through space. So right here the line is more defined because this little line is going through the wing and it's curving around. So this area right here is going to be a little darker, and then it's going to slowly feather out and get faint. And you can see right here the line is getting a little bit darker again because it's going in and curving in. So see how there's a difference in line quality here? This line's darker, this line's a little bit lighter, and then this line you can barely see and moves through and repeats the process. So you're going to find that in your shape. If you have trouble with it, that's okay, because it takes a while to actually get that task down, that ability. It's very reliant on observation. But I'm going to do this wing as an example. This is the finished product of the wing that I'm working on. You can see the lines are getting darker around here. But I'm going to do an example right here. Right here the line's a bit faint. So you have some faint lines here, so you're going to do some small dots, but they're not going to be as close to each other. Right here, however, the line's going to be darker. And as it moves through, it gets thinner. This is called implied line. So as you're drawing your piece, You want to make sure that you have some implied line in there to help you. And right here, this is going to be lighter, but right here it's going to be darker because you can see that darker line. So as I'm going through, right here it's all dark, and right here it's lighter. So as I go through, this is going to be lighter, and it's going to grow in darkness. So you're going to press a tiny bit harder on your pencil. Don't press too hard, because the only reason I'm pressing this hard is for you to see it. So don't press too hard, because you want to be able to put those dots in there, and I can't see that you're going to have lines underneath, or else you're going to end up getting marked down. So that's the trick with pointillism, is using point to show that you have shade instead of relying on lines. So when you're in the actual body of your animal, you want to make sure that you use the shapes inside. Right here we got a shape. The light's kind of glaring on it. Right here we got a shape that's lighter. And right here we also got a shape that's lighter. And I drew those into the legs. See the little line right here that I have lighter? And then I have this right here that's lighter. That's your paint by numbers that we're talking about here. So you want to make sure that you do that. Before you start shading, like after you're done with your contour, you're going to start on your shading activity. The reason we're starting on our shading activity is specifically because I want to see how you shade, and if you need help with shading, before you go on to your final piece. Because it's going to be really bad if you spend all that time doing that contour drawing, and then you start shading, and then you screw up. This is kind of like practice. You will be graded on this because it's something that you're spending time with. I don't want any of you to think that I'm just giving you filler activities. This top half right here is going to be 10 points, and so is this one. It's listed directly on the sheet. This is just to get you, it's your brainstorming activity, it's your studio activity. When you're ready for this pointillism sheet, you can grab one right there if you haven't grabbed one already. Later on, I'm going to go around the room and I'm going to hand out Sharpies. These are your Sharpies to keep for the semester. So we might end up using them later. But make sure at the end of the project, like the very end of the project, when you turn in your piece, you turn in your image along with your studio activity. And I'll explain that later, because the reflection sheet goes in that as well. Because earlier, when we turned in the collage, many of you were missing the personal reflection and the brainstorming. That's going to be at least 30 points from almost every project that I do, because it's going to help you. This is kind of like your studio brainstorming activity. So we're going to start from light to dark. And I have a little guide right here to help you clarify how to do that if you have any questions. But light, remember, light is not as many spaces between the dots, to make sure that you have some consistent space. And as you get darker, you're going to want to get closer. This looks a little bit darker than that. And with medium, you're going to want to even get a little bit closer. But I'm still leaving some space here. The reason I'm leaving space here is because I need to show that there's still some light within that shadow. And with medium dark, you just increase the dots and so on and so forth. You're going to need them closer together. And I'm still going to leave some space in this dark, but I want to make sure that I don't put them too close, because dark is going to be barely any spaces at all. And remember, you want to look at it as a whole object, as a whole shape. So you want to make sure that you are consistent all around. Because if you're not, your piece is not going to have unity, and it's going to look like it's lopsided and translucent, like it's a ghost, and it's constantly shifting. So dark, you're going to just go darker, and see how I have barely any light between the dots. You can barely see it. It's almost just like you're taking the Sharpie itself and filling in the whole box with no space in between. My expectation is for you to be able to demonstrate the ability of shading and to show me that you know exactly what you're doing before you jump into your piece. Because I don't want you spending all that time working on your contour and then messing it up because you're not sure of what to do. Now this right here, this is an example of blending from dark to light. And you're going to be doing this in your piece, so it's critical that you practice this. The first, you want to treat the whole thing as a whole. So I just put dots all around this area because you want to treat it as a whole. If you focus on one area, it's going to look detailed in one area, and it's going to look not as detailed in another, and you'll lack that unity. So this is your light shade, and as you move through, you can make some tick marks here to show that you're moving through. This is going to end up being a little more. So we're going to work all the way over this whole section, not passing this dotted line. This is going to be your medium, and this is going to be your tick mark for your medium dark or whatnot. So as you move through, you want to make sure that you're working on it as a whole, because it's going to be a lot easier in your eye. And as you go towards the dark, you put more dots in it. So I'm just going to make it brief. This is not finished yet. This would be unacceptable, because I can't tell if this is dark and this is medium. You want to make it look sort of like this, but it's okay if it's not exact. I'm not going to mark you down if it's not 100% exact, so don't worry. And I got some examples here of highlight and foreshadow and how the dots move through space. And here's a step-by-step guide to filling out your actual contour drawing. So you can also take this home and use this to your benefit. That way you'll have something to look at. So I'm going to have this demo